You would think by now that Toni Grossi would know better, that after years of burning bridges, stirring controversy, and pretending his takes were gospel, he might finally realize that reckless criticism in today's NFL media circus has consequences. But nope, Grossi once again decided to pick the wrong fight, this time with Shedeur Sanders. And what started as a snide, dismissive jab about a routine training camp setback has now exploded into a firestorm. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. With Grossi under fire from fans, fellow media members, and even within the Browns organization itself, it all unraveled live on air when Grossi, clearly frustrated by the momentum building around Shedeur, mocked his reported arm soreness during a segment. With his trademark smirk and that condescending tone we've all come to expect, he scoffed. "Sir, arm already? From what? Throwing a few scout team reps? Come on, this kid isn't built for Sundays." And just like that, Grossi took a standard, completely explainable training camp condition and used it to once again feed his ongoing one-man smear campaign against the Browns' most talked-about rookie. It was tone-deaf, it was unprofessional, and worst of all, it was blatantly transparent, because this wasn't just about soreness. It was about Grossi finding any excuse to discredit Shedeur Sanders, something he's been doing from the moment Sanders walked into the facility. Let's break it down. Shedeur, like every young quarterback adjusting to the speed and volume of NFL camp, developed mild arm soreness after a string of intense back-to-back days. Nothing major, not a tear, not a strain, not even something that required medical shutdown, just soreness. The kind that happens when you're throwing dozens of balls a day in high-pressure drills and staying after practice to get extra reps in with your receivers. You know, the kind of thing coaches actually want to see in a rookie. But to Grossi, it was an opportunity to punch down. Again, he went live on air, laughed it off, and said it was a sign that Shedeur wasn't ready for the grind of professional football. And in doing so, he didn't just attack Shedeur's body. He tried to undermine the work ethic behind it. And that's where people drew the line. Because within minutes of the segment airing, voices across Cleveland media and Browns Nation started pushing back. Hard. Tony Rizzo, in particular, came to Shedeur's defense with the kind of fire only Rizzo can bring. You want to mock a kid for working his ass off? That's where we're at now, Grossi. Let me tell you something. Arm soreness is what happens when you throw until the sun goes down. If you think that's weakness, you've never been in a locker room in your life. Boom. And that wasn't just performative TV outrage. That was a genuine live-in-the-studio rebuke from one of Cleveland's most respected sports voices. And Rizzo wasn't done. He doubled down later that day on radio, bringing up how Grossi conveniently ignores the soreness, injuries, and bad days from quarterbacks he likes, especially Dillon Gabriel, which is where things get even more interesting. Because this isn't just about a media veteran throwing shots at a rookie. It's about bias. It's about Grossi pushing a clear, targeted narrative, one that favors certain players while relentlessly undermining others. And Dillon Gabriel? He's been Grossi's guy since day one. Never mind the fact that Gabriel had one of the worst training camp meltdowns in recent Browns memory. Never mind that teammates distanced themselves from him after his emotional outburst. Never mind that, statistically, he's been less efficient, less composed, and less productive than Shedeur. Grossi? Silent. No harsh segments. No sarcastic jabs. No, he's not built for this comments. That's what fans and analysts are calling out now. Selective outrage. Because when Jimmy Haslam went on record saying he didn't really want Shedeur, Grossi gave it a pass. When Gabriel's composure collapsed under pressure, Grossi framed it as competitive frustration. But when Shedeur has one minor, common training camp setback, a sore arm, that's when Grossi decides to go full nuclear? Please. Even Coach Kevin Stefanski, not exactly known for jumping into media feuds, felt compelled to weigh in. When asked about Shedeur's soreness during a press conference, his tone was clear, direct, and pointed. He's been working hard. The kid stays late, comes in early. That kind of soreness is part of the process, especially with how many extra throws he's been getting in. I'd be more concerned if he wasn't sore, Translation: Grossi, sit down. This public support from Stefanski matters, because coaches rarely speak out to defend rookies over media criticism. It's a sign that Shedeur has earned that respect internally. It also hints that the team sees the bigger picture and wants to protect their player from outside noise. But here's the most satisfying part of the whole fiasco. Shedeur Sanders never responded. No tweet, no cryptic post, no press conference clapback. He just kept showing up to practice, running through drills, building chemistry with his receivers, and letting the tape tell the story. And guess what? Since Grossi's televised mockery, Shedeur's arm soreness cleared up within a few days, and his next full throwing session reportedly included a perfect red zone series, where he went 6-for-6 with 3 touchdowns. You want receipts? There they are. Meanwhile, fans are letting Grossi hear it. Twitter, Reddit, even the comment sections on Cleveland sports radio clips. Fans are piling on, posting training footage of Shedeur's progress and asking why Grossi seems so personally invested in rooting against him. Some are even calling for Grossi to be barred from team media availability. A few long-time season ticket holders publicly said they're done with his coverage entirely. And others, they're embracing the moment, creating memes of Grossi being owned by a sore arm. It's gone from criticism to comedy, and for a journalist whose credibility already took a major hit in recent years, this might be the nail in the coffin, because this isn't about disagreeing on who should start. Analysts can have opinions, but when your only consistent take is tearing down one player, no matter what he does right, fans start to see the agenda. And when that agenda turns into petty mockery, that's not analysis. That's clown work. So what happens now? Well, the Shedeur hype isn't dying down. Not when teammates are backing him. Not when the coaches are defending him. Not when the fans are making him the most talked about name in Cleveland football. And certainly not when every attempt to slander him only seems to make him stronger. Grossi, on the other hand, he's officially on the outside looking in. A man clinging to a narrative that fewer and fewer people are buying. And the more Shedeur succeeds, the more ridiculous that narrative becomes. Because when the cameras are off and the microphones are unplugged, all that really matters is what you do on the field. And so far, Shedeur Sanders is winning on tape, in the locker room, and now, in the court of public opinion. And Toni Grossi? He just found out the hard way what happens when you bet against the future to protect your own outdated playbook. This is bad. But for Grossi, he did it to himself. Here's the thing Toni Grossi never saw coming. The backlash didn't just come from fans and media figures. It came from inside the building. For a man so entrenched in Cleveland football culture, that's the kind of shift that says something's broken. And this time, it's his credibility. You see, while Grossi has been an ever-present voice around Brown for years, he's built that tenure on a precarious balance. One part informed reporting, one part personality. But when your personality becomes a relentless campaign against a player like Shedeur Sanders, who hasn't even played a down in the NFL yet, that balance gets obliterated. Because make no mistake, this isn't about analysis anymore. This is about Grossi trying to win a personal war. And the only problem? He's losing. Badly. Let's get into what's really going on here. Behind the headlines, behind the broadcast segments, there's a subtle but growing discomfort with Grossi's approach, especially among Brown staff. People close to the team have started to question, why is Grossi always circling Shedeur? Why is he so emotionally invested in downplaying his progress? Why does it seem like he's rooting for the rookie to fail? And when those questions start coming from people inside the franchise, it becomes impossible to defend the old, I'm just being objective excuse. One source familiar with internal dynamics at Team HQ described Grossi's recent behavior as borderline obsessive, not just in his media coverage, but in how he asked questions during pressers, how he reacted to any mention of Shedeur's potential, and how visibly uncomfortable he becomes when other media members speak positively about the rookie. That's not reporting. That's bias in real time. And the more you look at his track record, the more obvious it becomes. This isn't a one-off. It's a pattern, a weird one, because while Grossi was quick to tear down Shedeur for his arm soreness, he was eerily quiet when Deshaun Watson missed reps. No jokes, no monologues, no headlines. And when other rookies across the league dealt with similar soreness issues, something that's incredibly common during the first intense weeks of camp, Grossi didn't even mention it. So why the fixation on Shedeur? Some are beginning to suspect it's more than just skepticism. It's personal. Whether it's rooted in Deion Sanders' massive public persona, Shedeur's unconventional path to the NFL, or the fact that he doesn't play by old-school quarterback etiquette, Grossi simply can't stomach the idea that this kid might be legit. But it's that very refusal to adapt that's making Grossi look increasingly out of step, not just with modern football, but with modern coverage. The new wave of analysts, former players, and sports media personalities understand what a player like Shedeur represents. He's not just a quarterback. He's a cultural shift. He's brand forward, nil-tested, media-trained, and already better at handling scrutiny than half the league starters. He is the new face of what a quarterback can be. And for someone like Grossi, whose entire shtick is built on a crusty, outdated blueprint of what makes a real football player, Shedeur is everything he resents. It's giving threatened. It's giving out of touch. It's giving legacy panic. But the issue with doubling down on that type of narrative is that football doesn't lie. Tape doesn't lie. Stats don't lie. Locker room dynamics don't lie. And Shedeur's camp performance continues to silently obliterate everything Grossi keeps claiming. Let's take a deeper look at what's actually going on between the lines. Shedeur has been leading scout teams like a veteran, frequently checking into audibles pre-snap, which impress coaches tracking his on-field IQ, his chemistry with receivers, especially second-year wideouts trying to break into the rotation, has been noted as instinctive and tight. In contrast, Dillon Gabriel's timing remains shaky even with scripted plays. The soreness episode? It happened after 3 straight days of 100-plus throws, extra reps with receivers, and post-practice film sessions. It wasn't a setback. It was a sign of workload volume. That's not the mark of someone not ready. That's the mark of someone pushing themselves to peak, even if they know they're not being rewarded for it. And that's the part Grossi never seems to report. Even stranger? The growing divide between how Grossi talks about Shedeur and how actual NFL insiders discuss him. Agents, former QBs, and even rival team scouts have gone on record to say they're stunned by how well Shedeur is adjusting to pro game. One anonymous NFC coach reportedly told a local outlet, "If he were on our team, we'd be giving him reps with the ones just to see what we've got. Cleveland's either playing some long game or they're wasting him." It's that kind of perspective that makes Grossi's relentless negativity look petty and disconnected. You got professionals, people with nothing to gain from boosting Sanders, speaking honestly about his poise and upside. And yet here's Toni Grossi, cracking jokes about arm soreness like it's some kind of personal victory. So what's the end game here for him? Because one of two things is about to happen, and both are bad looks for Grossi. Option 1. Shedeur gets traded to a quarterback-needy team, High Saints, earns starter reps, and becomes a breakout rookie. In this case, Grossi becomes a guy who tried to bury a rising star before he ever had a chance. Option 2. Shedeur stays, works his way up, and eventually takes over in Cleveland. By that point, the fan base already knows who was trying to sabotage him from day one. And trust? Once lost, it doesn't come back. And let's be real, Grossi's track record isn't spotless. He's had his moments before. Controversial takes, apologies, internal suspensions. But the difference now is that the power dynamics have shifted. Players have their own platforms. Fans have receipts. Coaches are more transparent. And the old gatekeeping style of media is dying off fast. So when someone like Grossi tries to weaponize a minor injury to slander a player and gets fact-checked in real time, it's a wrap. The clip lives forever. The quote gets memed. The narrative crumbles under the weight of reality. Meanwhile, Shedeur, he keeps stacking good days, keeps earning quiet respect, keeps gaining support, not just from fans and media, but from people who actually matter inside the building. And as for the people outside, like Grossi, they're becoming background noise. Because in this league, you can't bully a future franchise QB into irrelevance, especially not when he's doing everything right. Grossi might try to frame that sore arm as a weakness, but what he actually exposed was his own desperation. The game's moving on, and Shedeur Sanders is carrying it with him. At this point, The Toni Grossi versus Shedeur Sanders saga has become something bigger than a local media squabble. It's a case study in how old-school media fails to evolve, and how young athletes like Shedeur are reclaiming the narrative in real time. What Grossi fails to understand, or maybe refuses to accept, is that in today's NFL, control has shifted. The gatekeepers don't gatekeep like they used to. Because while Grossi continues to push a tired narrative, Shedeur is operating on a completely different level, strategically building his own brand, staying locked in, and letting his performance force the conversation. And that scares people like Grossi, because his power as a local voice diminishes every time a player, like Shedeur, takes control of his image and proves that fans no longer need an outdated middleman to form opinions. But here's the critical shift we're seeing now. Shedeur's silence is louder than any of Grossi's sound bites. He hasn't once clapped back. He hasn't fed the media fire. There have been no passive-aggressive interviews or cryptic Instagram stories. Just tunnel vision, on-field work, and a quiet confidence that says, "Say what you want. I'll show you eventually." And here's the twist that makes this saga even more ironic. Toni Grossi is inadvertently helping Shedeur's rise. Every hot take, every dismissive comment, every eye-roll-inducing segment has only amplified interest in Shedeur's progress. The controversy has driven media attention, boosted fan curiosity, and kept his name in headlines, even during a slow news cycle. Shedeur Sanders is trending, and Grossi, he's unknowingly doing PR. But let's zoom in on what Shedeur has actually accomplished, because it's getting lost in all the noise. While Grossi nitpicks him from behind a microphone, Shedeur is quietly winning over the most important people in the building, his teammates. Multiple Browns veterans have reportedly started voicing support for Shedeur during private meetings and post-practice huddles. Not because he's loud, not because he's flashy, but because he's consistent. Players notice who stays after drills, who shows up early, who absorbs playbooks without ego. And Shedeur's reputation in those areas is growing fast. Even more telling, some position coaches have reportedly adjusted their language in meetings to subtly reference future packages involving Shedeur. No promises, no formal announcements, but the internal acknowledgement is there. He's being taken seriously, even if Grossi refuses to catch up. And you know who else is noticing? Agents, scouts, media outlets from outside of Cleveland. There's now increasing chatter about how the Browns are at risk of losing a long-term asset over short-term ego. National voices are starting to raise eyebrows at how the Browns are handling the rookie quarterback who's clearly outperforming expectations, but still being publicly downplayed by an entrenched local voice. And here's where this becomes more than a Cleveland story. It's exposing the generational rift between old sports media and the modern athlete. Grossi represents an era where quarterbacks had to earn permission to be seen as leaders, where flashiness was seen as arrogance, where a rookie with nil deals in a YouTube series would be considered distracted or entitled. But Shedeur, he represents a generation that's multifaceted, a generation that can throw dimes and sell out merch, that can lead a team and lead a brand, that can train all day and still post a vlog that hits 100,000 views by dinner. That's not distraction. That's evolution. And Grossi's problem is that he doesn't know how to talk about it. So he reverts to the only language he knows. Criticism disguised as concern and doubt framed as realism. But in doing so, he's not just misreading Shedeur. He's misreading the entire direction of the NFL. Quarterbacks today are expected to be more than just pocket passers. They're expected to be cultural leaders, faces of the franchise, public communicators, tech-savvy, socially conscious, brand-aware professionals who know how to connect with fans and bring attention to their team. Shedeur checks every one of those boxes. He's been media trained since high school. He's already handled national scrutiny through Colorado's chaotic 2023 season. He's faced more cameras than half the league's veterans and never once cracked under pressure. And now in Cleveland, he's doing the impossible, making fans believe again. That's the part Grossi doesn't get. For a city that has suffered through quarterback heartbreak after quarterback heartbreak, Shedeur represents potential without baggage. No torn ACL, no off-field scandals, no massive contract, just a fifth-round rookie with first-round talent, and a chip on his shoulder. And fans are rallying behind that. Walk into a Browns camp session, and you'll see it. Fans wearing custom Sanders jerseys. Young kids asking for his autograph over Watson's. Social media flooded with every throw he makes. Fans aren't stupid. They know when they see something real, and they're gravitating toward it. So what happens next? If the Browns brass is smart, and that's a big if, they'll recognize that this isn't a sideshow anymore. It's not a Twitter debate. It's a roster-level dilemma with massive long-term implications. They can continue to downplay Shedeur and let Grossi steer the local narrative. Or they can cut through the noise, elevate the guy who's already doing everything right, and build the future instead of fearing it. Because make no mistake, Grossi's days of shaping perception of a rookie quarterback are numbered. The fans have eyes. The coaches have film. The teammates have trust. And Shedeur? He has time. Time to prove everyone wrong. Time to make the franchise rethink everything. And time to outlast every lazy take that tries to hold him back. Toni Grossi wanted a headline, but what he got was a spotlight on everything wrong with how we cover young talent in this league. And now, he's the one who looks outdated. While Shedeur Sanders keeps doing what he's done since day one, letting the work speak louder than the critics ever could.